We're losing time. It's almost zero.
Override the system.
It's the auxiliary line, right there.
I used to say this all the time. America listens to money before it listens to people. And if that's true, then my son didn't stand a chance. He didn't have fancy clothes, didn't have a loud mouth, didn't have anyone important vouching for him. Most days, folks didn't even see him. I'm his mom, and before anyone knew his name, before news vans, before headlines, before people started acting like they always believed in him, it was just me and him against a city that never slows down. My boy was quiet, not shy, not scared, just quiet. While other kids talked nonstop, mine listened, like really listened, to sounds, to patterns, to stuff nobody else paid attention to. People called him weird. Some said he was slow. Others said that boy ain't right. I let him talk because I knew something they didn't. That kid's brain, man, it moved different. Back when I was still alive enough to work nights, I cleaned offices downtown. Big glass building, private bank, real serious place. Suits, security, the whole deal. I'd scrub floors till my hands burned. My son would wait outside sometimes, sitting near the wall, watching machines hum like they were alive. Security guards hated that. "Hey, kid, move along." My son would just smile, grab his bag, and shift a few feet down. Never argued, never complained, but he stayed close. He liked the sounds. The building had a rhythm. Backup generators, server fans, transformers buzzing low and steady. To everyone else, it was noise. To my son, it was language. I didn't know then how much he was learning. I just knew he noticed things I didn't. And then one day, I didn't come home. Life flipped on him fast. No warning, no mercy. 1 minute you're somebody's kid. The next minute the world expects you to survive on instincts alone. And somehow he did. That's the part people still don't understand. The morning everything went sideways, the city was barely awake. Rush hour hadn't hit yet. Coffee shops just opening, streets smelling like trash and diesel and yesterday's rain. That bank, already buzzing. Something big was wrong inside. I wasn't there, but later when my son told me the story, I knew exactly what he meant. You see, machines don't panic like people do. They stutter, they hesitate, they repeat mistakes. That morning, my son was doing what he always did, collecting scrap, listening to the city breathe, staying out of people's way. Then he heard it, the backup server fan. Off rhythm. Not broken, not loud, just wrong. Every 30 seconds, it paused, like it was holding its breath. Inside the bank, suits were losing their minds, phones ringing nonstop, IT folks sweating through their shirts, somebody upstairs yelling about money being gone. A lot of money, hundreds of millions, vanished. No foreign account, no digital trail, just gone. Cops got called, cyber teams scrambled, everybody blaming everybody. Outside, a kid everyone ignored stood up real slow. My son pressed his ear to the wall, closed his eyes, and whispered to himself, "Nah, this ain't theft." He remembered me then, my old keypad phone, the notes I used to scribble, not numbers, but patterns. I didn't know he watched me like that. Turns out he watched everything. He knew what rerouting sounded like. He knew what panic inside a system felt like. And he knew something real bad was about to happen. He grabbed his bag and walked toward the front doors. Security guard laughed when he spoke. "Boy, you lost?" My son looked him dead in the eye, first time ever, and said, "Your money ain't gone, but it's about to be." That's when the world finally stopped ignoring him. Now here's the wild part. They almost didn't listen. Security was ready to drag him off the steps like usual. Same routine, same disrespect. But then a woman came out. Mid-40s, sharp eyes, tired face, corporate badge swinging from her neck. Senior operations type. You could tell she'd been holding chaos together with duct tape and coffee. She heard what my son said, and instead of laughing, she paused. "What did you say?" she asked. My son didn't rush, didn't flex, didn't beg. He just said, "The system rerouted itself. You got about 3 hours before it wipes clean." Dead silence. That woman looked at the guard and said something nobody expected. Let him in. Man, when my son told me about that moment later, his voice still shook. First time ever walking into that building. Cold air, shiny floors, people staring like, "This kid? Seriously?" IT folks didn't want him there, straight up said it. "This ain't a joke." My son walked up to the screen, pointed at a timestamp, and said, "You looking at the wrong lock." They laughed. Then they leaned in. Then their faces changed because the kid they ignored just explained their own system better than they could. That's when everything flipped. That's when the countdown started. And that's when my son stopped being invisible. Now let me tell you something real. Adults hate being wrong, especially in suits, especially in rooms full of glass and money. When my son pointed at that screen, nobody thanked him. Not yet. They stared like he'd just walked into the wrong movie set. One of the IT guys laughed under his breath. Another shook his head like, "Man, I don't got time for this." But the woman, the operations manager, she leaned closer, real close. "Show me again," she said. My son didn't touch the keyboard yet. He just explained. Calm. No flexing, no big words, just patterns, timing, flow. He told them the system wasn't hacked from outside. It turned on itself. That's when the room shifted. You know that feeling when a joke stops being funny, when people stop smirking and start swallowing hard? Yeah, that. One of the engineers zoomed in on the log files. Another pulled up a secondary monitor. Someone muttered, "Hold up." Then real quiet. Because my son was right. The timestamps didn't line up. The transactions weren't stolen, they were parked. Hidden in a digital dead space the system created on purpose. One guy whispered, "That shouldn't even exist." My son shrugged. "Machines don't follow manuals," he said. "They follow fear." Nobody laughed this time. That woman looked at the clock on the wall, then back at him. "How long?" she asked. My son took a breath. Less than 2 hours before the system auto-cleans. You could feel panic crawling up the walls. Phones came out, voices dropped. Someone said the word media, and everybody flinched. That's when they finally did it. They pulled a chair out for him. Now listen, this part still messes with me. They didn't sit him down because he was a kid. They sat him down because they needed him. My son rolled his sleeves up like he'd done this before, asked for a local terminal, no internet, no remote access, just raw system. One engineer hesitated. "If this goes wrong," my son cut him off. Not rude, just real. "It's already wrong." That shut the room up. When his fingers hit that keyboard, the room held its breath. No typing fast for show, no hacker movie nonsense. Just steady, thoughtful, like he was talking to an old friend. Lines of code rolled down the screen, not stuff they taught in school, stuff you learn when you grow up listening instead of talking. Someone whispered, "How does he know this?" I wasn't there, but I know the answer. He learned it the same way kids like him learn everything, by surviving. Then a red warning popped up on the screen. Data collapse in 47 minutes. The room exploded. "Shut it down! No, that'll kill everything. We're running out of time." My son didn't move. He just stared at that warning like it was blinking Morse code. Then he said something that made my chest hurt when I heard it later. "It's scared," he said. "The system. That's why it's doing this." The woman asked, "Scared of what?" My son paused. Being blamed. Man, tell me that ain't human. That's when he knew what to do. And that's when things got real dangerous. I wasn't in that room, but I swear I can feel it every time I tell this part. The air got thick, not loud, heavy. That countdown on the screen, it wasn't just numbers anymore. It was pressure, real pressure, the kind that makes grown folks sweat through tailored suits. 47 minutes, that's all they had. Someone said, "Can we reverse it?" Someone else said, "If we touch the core, the whole system crashes." Another voice cracked, "This can't be happening." My son stayed quiet. That's something people misunderstand about him. They think quiet means unsure. Nah, quiet is how he thinks. He closed his eyes for a second, just one. And in that second, he wasn't in that shiny office. He was back outside, sitting by that transformer box, listening to machines hum while the city pretended he didn't exist. He opened his eyes and said, "It's not gonna listen to force." Everybody looked at him. "What does that even mean?" one guy snapped. My son didn't flinch. "You keep pushing," he said. "It's gonna lock itself forever. That money won't belong to anyone." The room froze. The operations manager leaned in. "Then what will it listen to?" My son swallowed. Trust. Now I know how crazy that sounds. Trust. In a bank? In a machine? But hear me when I say this. Machines are built by people, and people bake fear into systems without realizing it. My son asked for something nobody expected. "Show me the smallest transactions," he said. They stared. "Why? We're talking hundreds of millions. This isn't the time." He shook his head. "That's exactly why." They pulled up the data, tiny amounts, $10, $50, $200, stuff nobody in that room ever cared about. My son nodded slowly. "See," he said, "this is what the system trusts. Normal, quiet, honest flow." The IT lead frowned. "You want us to flood the system with small transactions?" "That's not flooding, that's reminding." The clock ticked. 39 minutes. They didn't have a better plan, so they let a street kid tell a billion-dollar system how to breathe. Small transactions started rolling in, slow at first, then steady. The warning meter flickered. Someone gasped. Trust index rising. Half the room didn't even know that metric existed. My son leaned forward. "That's it," he said. "Now it's listening." For a moment, just a moment, hope showed up. Then the screen flashed red again. System conflict detected. The room snapped back to panic. "What now? Who's fighting it? This shouldn't be happening." My son's hands stopped moving. That scared me the most when I heard it, because when he stopped, he knew. He looked up and said something real quiet. "This ain't outside. The room leaned in. "It's internal," he said. "Someone in here opened the door." Dead silence. No sirens, no yelling. Just truth sitting heavy in the room. The clock kept ticking. 31 minutes. And that's when my son realized saving the money was only half the fight. Let me tell you, nothing gets quieter than a room full of guilty thoughts. When my son said, "This ain't outside," nobody spoke. Not one word. You could hear the air system kick on, then off again, like even the building was holding its breath. Somebody finally asked real low, "You saying one of us did this?" My son didn't point, didn't accuse, didn't look around dramatic. He just nodded once. "Yeah," he said, "and they didn't steal the money. They tried to hide it inside the system." That hit different, because stealing, you can explain that, but betrayal from the inside, that shakes people. The operations manager rubbed her temples. "Can you find who?" My son hesitated. "Yeah," he said, "but you're not gonna like what comes next." The clock blinked. 27 minutes. He pulled up another layer of logs, deeper than anything those engineers usually touched. This wasn't everyday access. This was when the system thinks it's being lied to. Lines scrolled, then slowed, then stopped. One name kept popping up, same terminal, same user path, over and over again. A senior level account, real senior. Nobody said the title out loud, but everybody recognized it. The IT lead's face went pale, like all the blood left at once. He sat down hard. That's impossible," he whispered. My son shook his head. "Nah, it's just uncomfortable." The operations manager closed her eyes for a second, then opened them. "Can we stop it?" she asked. My son took a deep breath. "Yes," he said, "but there's a catch." Of course there was. "To pull the money back," he explained, "we gotta shut the whole system down. Clean break, no half steps." The room erupted. "You can't do that. The bank will go dark. ATMs, transfers, everything." My son stood up. "If you don't," he said calmly, "the money freezes halfway. Then nobody gets it back. Not you, not them." The clock didn't care about opinions. 21 minutes. That woman looked around the room, at the suits, the experts, the people who'd ignored my kid his whole life. Then she looked at him. "You sure?" she asked. My son nodded. His hands were shaking a little now. Not fear, weight. "Yeah," he said, "I'm sure." She took responsibility like a grown-up should. "Do it," she said. "I'll take the heat." For the first time, my son smiled just a little. Not proud, not cocky, relieved. He typed the final command. The lights flickered. Every screen went black. Outside, people screamed. Reporters started guessing. Cameras flashing. Headlines writing themselves. Inside, silence. 3 seconds passed. 4, 5. Then, one green light. Then another. Then the whole system came back online. Numbers started rolling. 10 million, 50, 100. The IT lead started crying, didn't even try to hide it. The money was coming home. But my son, he wasn't watching the numbers anymore. He was watching the door. Because now that the truth was out, the system wasn't the only thing that had to answer. The doors hadn't even stopped shaking when the truth showed its face. Inside that room, screens were still lighting back up, numbers still rolling home like they'd never left. Relief was trying to creep in, but it didn't get far, because my son cleared one last log. And this one didn't blink. No fake ID, no offshore mask, no mystery handle. Just a real name, a real badge, a real position. Somebody whispered it out loud before they meant to, and when that name hit the air, it felt like somebody pulled the plug on the room again. The IT lead sank into his chair. The operations manager went still, real still, like she was choosing her next breath carefully. That's one of ours, someone said. My son nodded. Yeah, he replied. That's why the system trusted them. See, that's the thing people forget. The system doesn't just run on code, it runs on access, on habits, on who it's used to letting in. That person thought they were smart, thought they could reroute the money, let the system panic, and walk away clean. They forgot one thing. Machines remember patterns. Security moved fast after that. Quiet. No yelling, no drama, just professionals handling something ugly. Outside, though, chaos. News vans stacked up like dominoes, reporters shouting questions through glass doors they couldn't cross. Social media already halfway wrong about what happened. Inside, nobody was celebrating. They were all looking at my son. The woman walked up to him, voice low. You just saved this bank. My son shrugged. I just fixed what was broken. She swallowed. You know what this means, right? He nodded. Yeah, your life's about to change. He looked past her, toward the door, toward the street. Maybe, he said, but not today. They offered him everything. Money, school, a job, security. Stuff folks think fixes everything. My son listened politely, same way he always did. Then he said something that shut the room up one last time. If you really want to fix this, he said, build something for kids like me. Don't wait till they save you. Nobody had an answer ready for that. By the time he walked back outside, the sun was already dipping low. Same sidewalk, same transformer hum, same city pretending it hadn't almost lost everything. But something was different. People were looking at him now, really looking. And for the first time, my son wasn't invisible. Not because he proved himself, but because the system finally had to admit who it had ignored. You think saving that kind of money would flip the city overnight? It didn't. What flipped was the attention. Outside that bank, cameras were everywhere. Reporters talking fast, guessing faster. Everybody wanted a headline before they wanted the truth. You could hear it in their voices. Who did it? Was it an inside job? Is the bank safe? Nobody was asking about my son. Not yet. He stood near the curb, holding the same beat-up bag he always carried, same worn sneakers, same quiet posture. If you didn't know better, you'd think he was just another kid passing through. That's how close the world came to missing him again. The woman from the bank stepped outside and spoke to the press. No script, no corporate smile, just tired honesty. This wasn't the bank's victory, she said. It was a child's clarity. That caught people off guard. A few heads turned, a couple cameras shifted. Which child? Someone shouted. She looked around. My son was already walking away. He didn't want the noise, never did. Fame feels loud when you grow up surviving silence. By that evening, the story started changing shape online. Folks were asking questions that made people uncomfortable. How did a kid like that know so much? Why wasn't he in school? How many kids like him are out there that nobody listens to? That's when I knew something real had happened, not just money coming back, a mirror getting held up. The next morning, people came looking for him. City workers, school folks, nonprofits with big words and small patience. Everybody suddenly had a plan. You should come with us. We can help. This is your chance. My son listened, then asked one question. After I learn, will you still listen? Nobody answered right away. That hurt him more than anything. Later that day, the woman from the bank came back. No badge, no title, just a person. She sat next to him on the curb and shared her lunch like it wasn't a big deal. She didn't promise him the world. She asked him what he wanted. He thought about it real hard. "I want systems that don't ignore people until they're useful," he said. Man, that hit her. That hit me, because that's the truth right there. We don't lack talent in this world. We lack listening. Things didn't fix themselves overnight, but something shifted. Programs started, doors cracked open. My son got a notebook instead of a trash bag. Same kid, different future. And for the first time since I'd been gone, I felt like the world had finally done right by my boy.
People still ask me about that day. They ask how it felt to have a child who did something that big, something that shook a system, something that made adults rethink everything they thought they knew. I tell them the truth. It didn't feel like pride at first. It felt like relief. Relief that the world finally slowed down long enough to notice a kid it had stepped over for years. Relief that my son didn't have to scream to be seen. Relief that his quiet way of understanding things didn't get lost forever. My boy didn't change after that. That's important. He didn't wake up different, didn't suddenly talk more, didn't start acting like the world owed him something. He still listens first, still notices patterns, still pays attention to what people ignore. The difference is, now people pause when he speaks. And that pause, that's respect. I think about all the moments before this story ever began. The nights I worked late, the mornings we shared a piece of bread in silence, the way he'd tilt his head when a machine sounded off, like he was hearing a secret the rest of us missed. I didn't know then what he'd become, but I knew who he was. A kid who learned early that survival teaches you things school never will. A kid who understood systems because he lived outside of them. A kid who didn't want praise, just fairness. That's why when people call him a hero, I smile, but I don't correct them. Because heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they wear worn-out sneakers. Sometimes they carry trash bags. Sometimes they wait patiently for the world to catch up. If there's one thing I want you to take from this story, it's this. Pay attention to the quiet ones, the kid sitting on the steps, the girl nobody asks questions to, the people who don't interrupt because they're busy listening. Talent doesn't always come polished, wisdom doesn't always come loud, and brilliance doesn't ask for permission. My son didn't save that system because he was special. He saved it because he was finally heard. And maybe, just maybe, if we learn to listen a little sooner, we won't have to wait for miracles to remind us who matters. That's his story. And now, it's yours to remember. If this story stayed with you, please like the video and subscribe for more real stories told from a mother's heart. What part of this story hit you the hardest? Share your thoughts in the comments. If you believe quiet voices deserve to be heard, subscribe to this channel. Thank you for listening. Your likes, comments, and subscriptions help these stories reach the right people.